So before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. So this is a very powerful statement from the prophet Isaiah. But in order for us to have a sense of what he is speaking about, we need to put it in a bit of context. And the context is that Israel has been exiled by the Babylonians. And this prophet, along with Jeremiah and others, were exiled in lands away from Jerusalem. And we are speaking about the 6th century BCE, so 6th century before Christ. And here the prophet is in exile, and he is writing to the people, and he is reminding them of the way they have not listened to God. So God has always been speaking, but somehow they have not been listening to him. And because of this, we often say that God punishing them, but that's how it has been understood. But it's not that God is punishing them, but that they have not listened to God, and the result of not listening is exile. And what happened to them in exile is the result of their disobedience. So we say, God is punishing me because of so and so. But God is punishing them. They are experiencing suffering because of their immoral behavior, because of the such towards going towards the life of idolatry. What could I say? Worshipping other gods. And so Isaiah now is writing to them, and he is telling them, listen, God wants to do something among us. So Isaiah is divided, the biblical scholars divided Isaiah into more or less three different sections. So we have the first set of Isaiah, the first early chapters, and then from chapter 40, right down to 60. The last chapter, 66, is we have a second Isaiah and a third Isaiah, and some people even say a fourth Isaiah. What those second and third means that the first Isaiah, the real prophet, he was put to death by being sawn in half by a sword, by a saw. They cut him in two. But he had a prophetic community, and the prophetic community continued the work that he has been doing. So we have a second Isaiah and third Isaiah giving the people a sense of hope, even in their faithlessness, even in their unfaithfulness. So I will just go through just one or two passages that I have here from, not passages, from the very text that we are using today. I just want to look at a few things so that you can get into know exactly why is God saying before I call you, I answer, why? So we have to understand that this isn't just fall out of the sky. Listen to what he begins to say. I was ready to be sought out by those who did not ask. In other words, God was looking for you. He was ready to speak with you, even though you didn't ask him. In other words, you are free not to talk to God. But he was there. He said, I was there. I'm ready. He's ready. You see how God is anxious? God is anxious and ready to be there, to come to us and to be in a relationship with us. And he said, so I was ready to be sought out by those who did not ask to be found by those who did not see me. I said, here I am, here I am. Isn't that wonderful? Imagine God is saying, even those who did not seek him and those who did not see him, he is speaking and he is saying, here I am. The presence of God are now coming at us and inviting us and saying, listen, you all had ears, you ain't hearing, you all blind, you all can't see, and I right here, and I calling you. And he said, to a nation that did not call on my name. So in other words, not only the individual, but especially the nation of Israel. In other words, the people they were really nothing. Abraham wasn't really nothing, but he called Abraham. And so he called Abraham's descendants. They were nothing, many of them did not bother with him, and he still pursued them. So this passage is telling us, first of all, that God is a God who pursues us even when we do not take him on. Isn't that wonderful? We do not take him on and he pursues us. And then in verse, so that was this one was the introduction of chapter 65. I was ready to be sought out, but you're not ready. And then he said, I will, in verse 12, I will destine you to the sword, and all of you will bow down to the slaughter. Because when I called, you did not answer. When I spoke, you did not listen, but you did what is evil in my sight. So it is not that God is putting them to the sword. It is not that God is telling them that they must bow down to the slaughter. It is that is happening to you because you did not listen when I called. So God is walking ahead of us. You see that? He's walking ahead of us. He wants to tell us something. He wants to guide our way. But we ain't interested. We're not interested. So here he says again, before I call you, I will before they call, I will answer. So here we have some of the context. And verse 13 says, therefore my servant shall eat. My servants, that is those who are faithful to him, they shall eat, but you shall be hungry. So the disobedient people will be hungry. My servants shall drink, but you shall be thirsty. My servant shall rejoice, but you shall be put to shame. Hear those words? And then he says, there are a few other things I wouldn't go through. There is one that he speaks of those who invoke me. Those who call will receive blessing from the God of faithfulness. Twice in that chapter, he used giving blessing. You will receive blessing from the God of faithfulness, those who listen and those who act according to his will. And then something nice, he said, the former troubles are forgotten and are hidden from my sight. The former. So we have God is appealing, and he is hoping that we will turn. And once we turn, he is saying, well, in your turning, I will forgive you. So he said, I will forgive you, and your past will not be remembered. What is your past like? For many of us, our past is not very nice. It could be very painful, especially when you're growing up in your teens. And so many challenges, even as a child. And then you get into adult life and you have more trouble than ever. You know the amount of trauma that we as human beings experience? We don't wear it on our shoulder. Maybe some people will walk with their back bent as a sign that they're really carrying something. But we carry so much within us, so much pain of the past, and sometimes we wonder, sometimes things that is done to us, or sometimes things that we do, and they're weighed down on us, and we don't think in some way that God has forgiven or God will forgive. We've done so much. I met so many people who say, man, Father, the things that I did, God can never forgive me for them. So that is how we are as human beings. We try to handle the pain of our lives as though we have our life in our control. So the prophet tells us that God is going to, and in the end of the chapter, he says something very nice. Just before he speaks about, before the call, I will answer, he speaks about the wolf and the lamb living together, eating grass, and so on. And the lion with the axe, even eating grass. I don't have the exact words, I just have something here. And then he said, so when he speaks, imagine a lion and a lamb, right? Imagine a wolf with a lamb, a lion with an ox. This is crazy. In other words, he is making a change in everything. So as he makes the change with the individual and with Israel, he's also making it with the rest of creation. So God is great. So with that in mind, I will just, therefore, because I have already said most of the things I want to say, but I just have a few points here that I would like to raise. Because when we read the text, before the call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. So I'll just pause here and then repeat that and go past the T.